Fishing used to be my sanctuary, my one place to escape everything, work stress, the constant grind, and, if I'm being honest, even my marriage. Out on the lake, it felt like none of that mattered. The only thing I had to focus on was the water, the line, and the possibility of catching something. It was peaceful, almost meditative. But something about this year, 2024, feels different. I can't shake the feeling that fishing doesn't offer the same refuge it once did. Ever since I found out my wife was cheating on me, those quiet moments out on the water feel less like an escape and more like a time to confront everything I've been avoiding. I've spent so many hours sitting in that old boat of ours, staring at the water, replaying the moments that led up to her betrayal. I keep asking myself the same questions over and over again. How did I miss it? How didn't I see the signs? Maybe I didn't want to. Maybe fishing became a way to avoid the truth, to keep myself busy, so I didn't have to face what was happening at home. But now, the lake is different. Every cast of the line is another reminder of what's been taken from me. I used to love the stillness, the way the world seemed to fade away. But now, that stillness just brings memories of everything I ignored. I remember when fishing brought me peace, real, honest peace. I'd come home after a long day, toss my gear into the truck, and head straight for the lake. It was my therapy, my reset button. Even when Carol, my wife, wasn't interested in coming with me, I didn't mind. It was my time. Or at least I thought it was. Now, looking back, I wonder if that time on the water wasn't just my escape, but also my blind spot. Maybe I was out there too often, too eager to be anywhere but home, where the cracks in our marriage were starting to show. The worst part is, I keep remembering the last few times I took the boat out, back before I knew about the affair. There was this one trip, Carol had stayed home, of course, and I was sitting out on the lake at sunset. The water was perfectly calm, and I thought to myself how lucky I was to have moments like that. But now, I know she was probably with him. While I was out there, content with the quiet, she was betraying me. It's like the lake holds those memories now, and no matter how much I try, I can't fish them away. Fishing, which once felt like the one thing I could rely on, now feels tainted. I go out there hoping to find the same peace I used to, but instead, I'm stuck with the weight of everything that's happened. The silence on the lake used to be soothing, but now it's just a constant reminder of what's gone. Every ripple in the water makes me think about all the signs I missed, all the times I should have noticed something was off. How did I let it get this far without realizing? Now, when I'm out there, it's not just about catching fish. It's about trying to catch my breath, trying to figure out what's next. The lake used to be where I could forget everything, but now it's the place where I remember it all. I still go out, though. Maybe it's because I don't know what else to do. Maybe I'm hoping that someday, sitting in that old boat, I'll be able to find some kind of peace again. But right now, it's just me, the water, and the silence, with nothing but time to think about what's been lost. She wasn't always like this. Carol and I had our good moments, moments where it felt like we were on the same page, like we really had something. Hell, we even fished together a few times, even though I knew deep down it wasn't her thing. She tried, though. Early on, she'd tag along, maybe not out of love for fishing, but out of love for us. I appreciated it, even if she didn't seem to enjoy the quiet, the stillness that comes with waiting for a bite. For me, those moments out on the lake were everything. For her, I guess it was just a way to pass the time. I can't help but think back to the last time we fished together. I didn't know it then, but something had already shifted between us. I sensed it, even if I couldn't put my finger on what exactly was wrong. She seemed distant, distracted. She sat there, in the same boat with me, but it was like she wasn't really there. While I was casting my line and trying to start a conversation, she was glued to her phone, barely responding. I remember trying to talk about the things we used to care about, our plans, our lives, even mundane stuff like what to cook for dinner that night, but she was somewhere else entirely. At the time, I chalked it up to a rough day or just a lack of interest in fishing, but now I know better. It turns out, she wasn't just bored or distracted. She was texting him. The man she was having an affair with. I found out later, after everything came to light, but that memory still haunts me. It's like a snapshot of our relationship unraveling right before my eyes, and I didn't even realize it. There we were, sitting side by side in the same boat, but she was already miles away, mentally and emotionally. It's funny how a fishing trip can become the moment where everything starts to fall apart, even if you don't recognize it at the time. I remember glancing over at her, seeing her face lit up by the glow of her phone, completely checked out from the moment we were in. I should have known then that something wasn't right. In the past, she would at least humor me with a few conversations or ask about the fish, but not that day. That day, she was a million miles away, lost in whatever conversation she was having with him while I sat there like a fool, trying to hold on to something that was already slipping away. Looking back, I wonder if that was the moment I lost her for good. Maybe I'd lost her long before, and that day on the lake was just when it became impossible to ignore. It's painful to think that while I was trying to salvage whatever was left of our connection, she was busy building one with someone else. I didn't see it at the time, but now, every detail from that trip stands out like a flashing red light. Her disinterest, the way she kept checking her phone, even the awkward silence between us, it all makes sense now. She was already gone, and I was too blind to see it. It's strange how fishing, something that used to bring us together, became the setting where I realized just how far apart we'd grown. What was once a shared experience, a way to spend time together, had turned into a painful reminder of everything we were losing. And even though I didn't know it in the moment, that day on the lake was the beginning of the end. When I look back on those days, I can't help but feel like a complete fool. Carol was slipping away, right in front of me, and I didn't even see it. I was too caught up in planning our next fishing trip, tuning the motor on the boat, and figuring out where we'd cast off next weekend. Fishing was my life, it was my passion, my escape from the daily grind. But for Carol, I guess it was something else entirely. To her, it wasn't an escape, it was a distraction. It was something that kept me away, something that left her feeling alone. I suppose that's when she started looking for attention somewhere else. I can sit here and make all the excuses in the world, but the truth is, her betrayal still stings in a way that's hard to describe. No matter how much I try to rationalize it, telling myself that maybe I wasn't present enough, that maybe I was too wrapped up in my own world, it doesn't take the pain away. The fact is, she cheated, and it tore something apart inside me that I didn't even know could break. It's strange, though. Fishing used to be my sanctuary, the one place where I could clear my mind and feel at peace. But now, the water doesn't calm me like it once did. Instead of finding that sense of freedom out on the lake, all I feel is the weight of what I missed, the things I ignored. The silence that once brought me so much comfort is now the same silence that echoes with my own blind stupidity. Every time I cast a line, I can't help but think about how I let everything go wrong on shore while I was too busy chasing fish. I remember when I used to sit out there, watching the sunrise over the lake, feeling like nothing else in the world mattered. The gentle rocking of the boat, the sound of the water lapping against the hull, it used to be my way of shutting out the noise of the world. But now, those same sounds are a reminder of how I let everything slip away. I spent so much time on the water, trying to perfect the art of patience, learning to wait for the right catch. But I didn't have that same patience for my own marriage, and I didn't notice the cracks forming until it was too late. It's hard to admit, but I think I used fishing to avoid the problems that were piling up at home. Every time Carol seemed distant or we'd have a fight, I'd escape to the lake. It was easier to be out there, alone with my thoughts, than to confront what was really happening. I convinced myself that I was just giving us space, that I was doing what made me happy, and that everything would work itself out. But it didn't. Instead, while I was out there trying to catch fish, she was pulling further and further away, and I was too blind to see it. I guess that's why the lake feels different now. It used to be the place where I could get away from it all, but now it just feels like a mirror, reflecting all the things I didn't want to face. I see the same water, but it reminds me of all the mistakes I made on shore. Fishing still matters to me, but it doesn't bring the same peace it once did. Now, it's just a reminder of everything that slipped through my fingers, just like Carol did. Since the day I found out about the affair, I've spent more time fishing alone than I ever did before. It's funny how something I used to do for fun, to relax, has now become my only refuge. The lake is the one place that still feels familiar, even if it doesn't bring me the same peace it once did. I keep going back, like the routine of it might help me make sense of everything, but lately, I wonder if all I'm doing is trying to run away from the truth. I tell myself that the quiet of the lake helps me clear my head, but if I'm honest, I think it just gives me more space to replay every moment of our marriage unraveling. I sit there with my line in the water, waiting for a bite, but my mind is never fully there. I catch myself thinking about every argument we had, dissecting every lie she told. I can see her face, hear her excuses, and I go back to wondering how I didn't see it sooner. It's like every cast into the water is me trying to cast away the thoughts, but they always float back to the surface. The more time I spend on that lake, the more I realize I'm not really fishing for fish anymore. I'm fishing for answers. Maybe for some sort of closure that keeps slipping through my fingers. The fish ignore my line, and I wonder if the lake is telling me something, or maybe it's just another reminder that some things can't be caught, no matter how hard you try. I sit there for hours, hoping for that tug on the line, but what I'm really hoping for is to catch some kind of understanding, something that will explain why everything fell apart. Fishing has always been about patience, waiting for that one perfect moment when the fish takes the bait. But now, that patience feels more like torture. It gives me too much time to think, to dwell on everything I missed while I was busy chasing something else. Maybe that's why I keep coming back. Out there, it's just me and the water, and I don't have to deal with anyone or anything. I don't have to pretend I'm okay or that I've moved on. The lake doesn't care about my problems, and that's both a comfort and a curse. The thing is, I know deep down that I'm not going to find what I'm looking for out there. There's no magic moment on the lake that's going to make the pain go away. No perfect catch that's going to reel in all the answers. But I keep going because it's all I know how to do right now. It's the only place where I don't feel completely lost, even if it's just for a few hours. Sometimes, when I'm out there, I wonder if the silence is actually helping me or if it's just another way to avoid facing the reality of what's happened. I tell myself that I need this time to process, to work through my thoughts, but the truth is, I don't know if I'm moving forward or just stuck in the same place. The lake was once my escape, but now it feels like I'm trapped out there, casting and reeling in, over and over, but never really catching what I'm looking for. Maybe that's what fishing has become for me, an endless search for something that's always just out of reach. And maybe, just maybe, it's not the fish that keeps slipping away, but the closure I can't seem to find, no matter how many times I cast my line. After I confronted Carol about the affair, everything between us fell apart even faster than I thought possible. It's strange, when you imagine how you'll react to something like that, you think there'll be some kind of resolution, some clarity. But that's not what happened. Instead of an apology or any sign of regret, she barely flinched. She didn't apologize. She didn't even seem to care. That hurt almost as much as the betrayal itself. It was like she was just waiting for it all to come out, and when it finally did, she felt nothing. No guilt, no remorse, nothing. I can't stop thinking about all those weekends I spent out on the lake, believing she was at home, waiting for me to come back. I'd leave the house early in the morning, excited for a day of fishing, thinking we had an understanding. I'd imagined she enjoyed her time alone, that it was good for us to have some space. But now I know she was using that time for him. The worst part is, it wasn't just a few moments stolen here and there. She built something with him while I was busy casting lines and chasing fish. All those days, I thought I was escaping the world. She was slipping further away into someone else's arms. There's one day that sticks with me more than the rest. I packed up my gear and told her I was heading to the lake for the weekend. I needed some time to clear my head. Things had been tense between us, and I thought maybe getting away would help. I thought the space would give us both time to cool off, to reset. But when I came back that Sunday, everything felt off. The house was different, cold, distant, like the life had been drained out of it. It wasn't just that I'd been gone, it was like something had shifted permanently. She acted normal enough, but I could feel it. The betrayal had already happened, even if I didn't know the details yet. Looking back, I realized that was the moment I truly lost her. The affair wasn't just physical, it was emotional, too. She had already checked out of our marriage, and I was too blind to see it. The fact that she didn't seem to care when I confronted her made it clear she was done with me long before I even suspected anything. The cold way she looked at me, the complete lack of emotion in her voice, it's like she enjoyed watching me fall apart. I can't help but think she had been waiting for me to find out, maybe even hoping for it, so she wouldn't have to pretend anymore. That's the part that cuts the deepest. It wasn't just that she had been with someone else, it was that she didn't even have the decency to feel bad about it. No tears, no apologies, just indifference. It's like all those years we spent together meant nothing to her. I thought she would at least try to explain, maybe tell me why or what went wrong. But there was nothing. She stood there, watching me unravel, like she was relieved the secret was finally out in the open. It's hard to explain the kind of pain that comes with realizing someone you love doesn't care about you anymore. That they haven't cared for a long time, and you were the last to know. I thought I needed time away to clear my head, but all it did was give her the opportunity to slip away without me noticing. And the worst part is, I can't help but feel like she was quietly enjoying every second of watching me realize how much of a fool I'd been. Fishing used to be something we shared, at least in the beginning. I'd drag Carol along to the lake, and though she never loved it the way I did, there was something nice about having her there. She would humor me, cast a line or two, maybe read a book while I focused on the water. It was enough back then, or at least I thought it was. But now, fishing is just mine again, and not in the way I want it to be. Carol's gone, but her presence lingers like a bad memory. It's hard to explain, but the lake doesn't feel the same anymore. It feels tainted, like her betrayal is still sitting there in the boat with me. I go back, time after time, because it's all I know how to do. But every time I look out at that water, it's like I can feel the weight of what she did pulling me down. The lake, which used to be a place of peace and escape, now feels heavy with memories I'd rather forget. I can't help but think about all those trips I took alone, while she was off with him. It's funny, when you spend hours staring at the water, with nothing but your own thoughts, things start to come into focus. I realize now that I was always going to lose her. Maybe it was inevitable. Carol wanted something more exciting, more immediate than what I could give her. Fishing takes patience, something that maybe she never had. You have to be willing to sit in the quiet, to wait for something worth catching, and I don't think she ever understood that. She wanted something fast, something that would pull her out of whatever boredom she was feeling. And maybe I wasn't enough to keep her from looking elsewhere. I used to think I could fix things. That maybe if I tried harder, if I spent more time with her or gave her what she wanted, I could reel her back in. But that's not how life works. You can't catch what doesn't want to be caught. And Carol? She didn't want to be here anymore. I see that now. She was always going to slip away, no matter how hard I tried to hold on to her. But even knowing all of that, I keep going back to the lake. I keep casting my line, trying to find something, maybe peace, maybe clarity, maybe just a sense of normalcy again. The lake is the one place that still feels familiar, even if it's changed. I sit there in the boat, watching the ripples on the water, hoping that one day, it will feel the way it used to. That one day, I'll be able to sit out there and not think about her, not think about the way she left or the way she broke everything we had. Right now, though, that day feels far off. For now, every cast of the line is like a question I can't answer, a search for something I can't seem to find. But I'll keep going back, because I have to. Because the lake is the only thing that still feels like home, even if it's not the same. And maybe, eventually, I'll find something that feels real again. Something that's worth the wait. After the divorce, I figured fishing would be the one thing that could help me heal. It always had a way of clearing my head before, letting me forget everything for a while and just focus on the water, the line, the waiting. I thought getting back out there, alone, would help me find some peace, maybe even give me a sense of control after everything else in my life had fallen apart. But I was wrong. It's been harder than I expected. The healing hasn't come the way I hoped it would. Every time I'm out on that lake now, I find myself replaying everything in my head, every argument, every cold look, every moment that should have tipped me off but didn't. It's like my mind is stuck in this loop, going over all the ways I missed the signs of her affair. I wonder how I didn't see it sooner, how I let myself be so blind to what was happening right in front of me. That's the thing about betrayal, you always look back and see the signs, but in the moment, you convince yourself everything is fine. Maybe that's why I keep coming back to the lake. It's the one place I don't have to pretend everything is okay. Out there, it's just me and the water, and I don't have to put on a brave face for anyone. I don't have to act like I'm moving on, or like I'm over it. The lake doesn't expect anything from me. There's a kind of comfort in that, and being able to just exist without anyone else's judgment or expectations. Out here, the only betrayal comes from the fish that get away. And even when that happens, somehow, it hurts less than what Carol did. The thing is, when you trust someone that deeply, you think you're both in it together, like you're in the same boat, rowing toward the same destination. But then one day, you realize they've jumped ship, leaving you to drift alone. That's exactly how it feels now. I spent so many years thinking we were building a life together, and then, just like that, she was gone. I'm left wondering if I was ever really enough, or if I was just something to pass the time until she found something better. The lake used to be my escape from everything, but now, even here, I can't escape those thoughts. Every ripple in the water reminds me of how quickly things can change, how fragile everything is. One minute, you think you've got it all figured out, and the next, it's gone. I still fish, though, because I don't know what else to do. There's a strange comfort in the routine of it. Cast the line, wait, hope for something to bite. It's simple, even if life off the water is anything but. I guess, in a way, I'm still waiting for the pain to fade, waiting to stop feeling so betrayed, waiting to feel whole again. But that's the thing about fishing, sometimes, you wait, and nothing happens. The fish don't bite, and you go home empty-handed. Maybe that's how healing works too. Maybe it takes a lot longer than you expect, and maybe you don't always get the closure or the answers you're looking for. But for now, I'll keep going back to the lake. It's the only place that still feels honest. Out there, I can sit with my thoughts, good or bad, and just let them be. And who knows? Maybe one day, I'll reel in something more than just fish. Maybe one day, I'll find that peace I've been searching for, even if it's been harder to catch than I thought.